South of world-famous Daytona Beach sits a sliver of sand known as New Smyrna, year-round hotspot for tourists and surfers. Problem is, sharks like it here too, and the combination keeps lifeguards and news reporters working overtime. So much so, New Smyrna has become the shark attack capital of the world. More shark bites here than anywhere. So what the heck is going on? Why so many attacks? What is it with this beach? One man that might have the answer is this guy. He's been riding waves here since the 60s. One-on-one with surfer dude Kem McNair.
And here we go. So I went on YouTube and I was watching clips of fast times at Ridgemont High the other day.
Okay.
And I was laughing because Spicoli, remember him? Who ordered the pizza, dude? Over here, dude. And I was thinking about all the old movies of how we made surfers out to be. It was always that, wasn't it? When you look back at some of the old ridiculous movies, surfers were always the guys kind of hanging out, maybe drinking some beers, smoking some pot. I hope we've moved on since then. Kem, I'm glad you're here, man. This is awesome.
Thank you, Randy.
This is awesome. This is so cool to have you here. I got recommended to talk to you. You know this is trouble when a guy named Pug tells me to talk to you.
He was an ex-golf pro that I took my first golf lesson from.
Yeah?
And I've known him forever. Used to surf back in the day. That's how I knew him. And
yeah, he
guy.
just hangs out at New Smyrna Beach and just lives a cool life, man. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad way to go, is it? I want to talk about surfing and I want to talk about sharks. A lot of folks that are going to be watching this may or may not know this. I read some weird stat. Tell me if this is wrong. I read a stat a long time ago that something like 40% of all shark bites in the world occur at New Smyrna Beach, Florida.
I think it's higher than that.
Now, we're not talking people getting killed necessarily.
I don't think anybody's ever been killed.
Yes.
But they've been some good bites.
A lot of bites there. It is a stretch of beach. So let's help viewers understand this. New Smyrna Beach, Volusia County, Florida. Tell people where this is at and how really small of an area this is.
Yeah, just south of Daytona Beach is Ponce Inlet. And on the Daytona side, we call that Ponce. On the New Smyrna side, that's NSB Inlet or the Inlet. And that little particular area there, when the tide goes out, it pulls all kinds of dirty water out through the mouth of the inlet. And the Ponce side stays clean, and the water's pretty clear over there. The New Smyrna side gets all the dirty water because the jetty's real short, and it pulls that water out and makes a big giant brown comma out in the ocean. I've seen this before from the 13th floor of the Inlet condo that's right there on the beach. And I've seen that whole tide cycle where that tide went out, made this big brown thing, and then as the tide came back in, it vacuumed all that brown water back up inside the inlet, and it was nice and green again. And so basically the sharks are there most of the year when the water gets a little bit warmer. They don't stay around when the water's cold. They go down south. And then they basically just are usually looking for fish. If we see a bunch of fish jumping and pelicans diving and stuff, you better watch your feet and stuff, because they could easily come up and bite you. And they're so fast. About a year ago, I was sitting on my board, and one hit a school of fish about 10 feet away from me, went about 40, 50 feet away, and turned around and came back toward me with his dorsal fin, about this high, sticking out of the water. And he went from 40 feet away to where my feet were this fast. I mean, there's no way you could have jerked your foot out of the water if he wanted to bite you.
So people are going to be watching this. So when you see, was it a blacktip?
Yeah.
So I know surfers see dolphins and sharks all the time, both on the West Coast, East Coast. Is it freaky, or do you just kind of look at it and go, all right, I'll keep an eye on you and I'll catch the next wave and get out of here?
Well, it depends on the clarity of the water, whether you have to worry. I've been out there when the water's been crystal clear and you can see all the way to the bottom, 10 feet down. And I look over to my left and there's a 8-foot blacktip swimming on the bottom coming right toward me. and it's about 8 feet deep. I didn't even pick my feet up out of the water. I just wanted to see what he was going to do, and he swam right under my board, and I'm riding a longboard, like a 9-footer. And so you've always heard if you splash and make a bunch of noise, it'll attract sharks. So I started doing that just to see what he would do. He couldn't have cared less. He just kept right on swimming and just went on by me. And so, you know, you have to take the surroundings in with the equation. If there's a lot of fish, the water's dirty, be careful. If the water's clear, they don't want to have anything to do with us.
So I want our viewers to understand. It's south of Daytona Beach.
Yes.
And from what you said about Ponce Inlet down to where about?
It can be anywhere along the beach there. There's bites at Ponce, too.
Okay. But that little section, how many miles so people understand?
About a mile south of the New Smyrna jetty.
So how many miles total is this area that is concentrated, would you say?
Probably a half a mile or so, or there's some more bites right there.
Okay, so it's a small little area along the east coast of Florida, south of Daytona Beach. Mm-hmm. It's not unusually built up there or...
well, there's a national park there.
Yeah, I mean, no, in perspective for people that are on the west coast of the United States and stuff, it's not like Los Angeles or Manhattan Beach where there's condo after condo. I mean, there's a lot of building, I'm not saying that, but it's not overbuilt up.
No, basically there's a few condos right there at the inlet, and then there's a park, and south of those condos are all residential for a few miles south, and then there's some interspersed condos, and then it gets more condo-ish, I guess, south of that down the beach toward Bethune Beach.
So, obvious question: why so many bites along this small strip of sand?
I've done some things with George Burgess, the famous shark guy from Gainesville, the International Shark Attack File, and I've been on a couple of shows with him, and he's a pretty smart guy.
He's got the best job in the world, too.
Yeah, I think he's retired now.
He is, yeah.
He has told me, you know, sharks need to make a living, too, and basically the inlet, there's a lot of fish going in and out of the inlet, and there's a lot of people in the water. And when you put a lot of people and a lot of sharks in the same spot, there's probably that many sharks at every inlet. There just aren't that many surfers. There's times when the waves are pretty good. There'll be 300 people in the water. And, you know, the sharks can come in. You've seen a couple of my pictures where the water was 1.5 feet deep, and there's 6-7 foot blacktip swimming in 1.5 feet deep of water. And, you know, I try to get pictures of those things, but sometimes they're very elusive. Like you'll see them just for a second, and then you'll run down there with your camera and you'll stand there for 15 minutes and somebody way down the beach will go, "Hey, he's down here." And you run down there and then, "Oh, he's down here now." And you never can catch him. So.
Yeah. So, but I want to try to understand this. You've been surfing there since, I think, like the 1960s, right?
April of 64, I got my surfboard.
There's a lot of places in the world with a lot of fish and a lot of surfers. Why do you think it is so prevalent in this spot, New Smyrna Beach?
It's beyond me. There was bites back in the 60s. Not
really?
A lot, but I had a friend that got bit on the beach, a mile or two south of the inlet. And back then it was New Smyrna Beach was the world's safest bathing beach. That was the slogan. And now it's the world's shark bite capital. So how does it go from one to the other? That's pretty crazy.
Because you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of crowded beaches. I can take you to places in Australia and California and South America where there's tons of people. Same kind of water, same kind of inlet. I'm sure same amount of fish population. I'm just wondering, what the hell why would there be so many bites? Is the water maybe a little bit more dirty? I mean, with more sediments in the water and the sharks can't tell what things are? Any theories?
I think it's the amount of surfers that are in the water, because that's one of the most popular surf spots on the East Coast of the United States. Probably the most consistent wave on the East Coast of the United States. When it's flat in the whole rest of the state, it'll still be 3 feet at New Smyrna and rideable. And that is to do, I believe, with the depth of the channel that goes out through there. The wave, basically when waves come in, they hit a sandbar and it drags on the energy of the wave below and makes the wave peak up and break. it's slowing the wave down, and the wave just spills over at the top because the top's still going faster. So it pulls the wave down, slows it down, and the depth of the channel going out miles across the inlet ends up letting that wave travel a little bit farther before it hits a sandbar, and then it's a little bigger down there. That's all there is to it.
So what kind of bites have you seen in all these years? You live there. You've been on the beach when people have been probably bit. What happens? So give me an idea.
I've seen a bunch of different things. I was in the water one day surfing with 25 guys, and there was a run out, and the water was dirty in that run out, and I was sitting outside of that run out, and a shark went in and bit this guy on the foot, and he screamed and picked his foot up out of the water, and he was bloody. He didn't rip his foot off or anything, just punctured a bunch of little holes in his foot. And he freaks out, and this girl goes paddling over to him and takes off toward the beach, because he's bleeding. And the other guys in the water didn't even pick their feet up. They just sat there, and I took off paddling down the beach. I said, nope, I'm not staying here. So that's one addition. One of my friends, that's a doctor in New Smyrna that I've surfed with for a long time. He's kind of a novice, and we took him under our wing, and he was riding a wave in between, basically when a wave breaks, you got the beach break, which is breaking right on the sand. Then you got a little deep spot. That's called a slough. Then there's another sandbar. Then there's another slough. Then there's another sandbar, and waves just hit those things and break. So he had ridden a wave in to that slough and jumped off his board and landed on top of a shark. And it's kind of like a bad dog. If you kick a dog, he'll turn around and bite you usually. Same thing with a shark. If you hit a shark with your foot, he'll turn around and bite you. And it did. And so I had just seen a guy walk up the beach with a bloody hand, and he had put his hand in the shark's mouth and it bit him. Water was real dirty. Put his hand in there, got bit. He comes walking up the beach, and I said, dude, come here. And I picked his hand up and squeezed it off, and called the lifeguard truck, and they came right down and were working on him, and got his hand bandaged up. And I looked down the beach about 200 yards, and there's another lifeguard truck running down there, and there's a guy sitting on the beach down there, and I know what's going on, so I drive my truck down there, jump out with my camera, and run up, and the lifeguard says, we need to pick this guy up and put him on the back of the truck. So I bend over to put my arm under his knee, and another guy's going to get his shoulder. There's four of us. We're going to lift him up on the tailgate. And as we did this, I looked down, and it's my friend Brian, the doctor. And I go, Brian, what are you doing, dude? He goes, I jumped on a shark and he bit me. I said, okay, well, let's get him up on the truck. We got him on the truck, and they worked on his foot for a minute. And it ended up, he said, I don't want to go in the ambulance. Can you give me a ride to the hospital? I go, yeah. So in the meantime, we're driving to the hospital, and his foot's bandaged up, and he's calling all his surgeon buddies to meet him at the hospital. And he was kind of freaked out because he thought he was going to get some kind of infection. And he didn't surf for a few months after that because he was afraid that he would be bit on the hand, and he does surgery all the time, and it could jeopardize his career. So we got him back on the horse and got him back in the water, and now he's fine.
These are like war stories, I mean, but I think everybody, it's sort of almost, tell me if I'm wrong, it's almost like a badge of honor. Don't you feel?
Exactly.
Don't you feel like that? Exactly. Your surgeon buddy's like still showing that scar to people. Hey, do you know what happened here? Little black.
Oh, he'll tell you all about it. All you got to do is bring it up, and he's on it.
Sitting in a bar it's like that scene in Jaws, right? Yeah. Guy rolling up, sitting there. Let me show you, what this came from.
Same kind of thing, And there's a bunch of people in New Smyrna. I always wanted to get together. Somehow I tried to get a hold of the lifeguards. I tried to get a hold of the shark attack file and get a list of everybody in New Smyrna that's been bitten and get them all together in one big photo. And I made absolutely no headway. They will not give out any of that information anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe they...
it'd be a great photo.
Shark survivors,
yes,
shark bite survivors.
Bit,
be a big picture.
Yeah,
there's a lot. Yeah. People don't realize, man. This strip of beach is just sort of mysterious. Like you said, you're probably not going to be eaten alive or dragged out to sea by one of these things because they usually bite, right?
They bite and
spit out.
It doesn't taste like fish. because they're basically chasing fish. When you see a shark jump out of the water, they're spinning in the air. What they've done is they've hit a bait ball of fish, and they're just going up through the middle like a corkscrew. And we weren't really sure what they were doing. Sometimes some people said, well, they're trying to get parasites off their body. They're doing this, they're doing that. But I saw one time jump, and he was spinning 100 miles an hour, and a piece of fish goes flying out of his mouth, and just from the centrifugal force of him spinning. And I went, there you go. He was feeding.
Right.
You know, so there it is.
So yeah, let's talk about that photo you took years back, and really became like a national sensation. Take us back. You were shooting a buddy of yours surfing at the time, right?
No, he wasn't even a buddy. When I shoot down there, I'll just shoot everybody if they're surfing good. You know, I've been surfing so long, I can tell when somebody's a good surfer, and you never know. You might get a great picture.
Right.
So I'm get my buddy Skipper comes walking up to me, and I said, I'm going to go down and shoot for a second. Walk down here, and the waves were small. There was only like 3 feet maybe. So we walk down to the water line, and we're standing there talking, and this guy takes off on a wave, and he does a little cutback on this wave, and I shoot 3 photos of the thing. And Skipper says, did you get that? And, sometimes you have tunnel vision.
Sure,
you're
concentrating on...
Yeah, I'm focusing on the surfer, and he goes, did you get that? And I go, yeah. And I look at my camera, and I back it up a couple frames, and there's a shark coming right out of the water, 3 frames. And I go, are you kidding me? And I said, I didn't even see that. And he goes, wow, you got that? I go, yeah. So I walked up to my truck, I think, a couple minutes later, and there were a bunch of surfer guys standing there that I knew, and I went over and showed them the picture. They freaked out. So I put it on Surfline that night, which was a surf site.
Right.
And I got all these hits on it, like instantly, And I woke up the next morning, and Jason Allen from Channel 9 called me, and he's a surfer. And he goes, Kem, can I come over and, talk to you about that shark picture that you took? And I said, yeah. Meet me at the Inlet in the morning about 10:30. So he shows up, and we do a little interview, blah, 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 and he talks all about it. And I end up, leaving. And so later that evening, they had it on the news, and it blew up so heavily that they put it on the ABC server in New York, and any of the affiliates in the whole country can just snap it up like that. All of a sudden, they all snapped it up, and the next day, CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, Inside Edition, everybody was calling. My phone was ringing off the hook, and I went, "Are you kidding me? This is no big deal at New Smyrna Inlet for a shark."
Oh, it was a big deal.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
So it went like worldwide viral in no time, and I was getting calls from all over the world. And I think, who was it? Barcroft Media in England called me and said, we want to license that photo from you. And I said, okay, let me check a couple other things. And I got a bidding war between some guys in New York and these guys, and they gave me the best deal. It was a 60-40 split. I got 60. So I licensed it to them, and they sold it all over the world for a couple of years. And I made about $11,000 off that photo.
Wow.
Just for a half a second.
Well, you really didn't even know what you took at the time, other than the surfer.
The shark photobombed me is what happened.
Shark photobombed you. That's good. Yeah. It was the picture we're looking at. It's a blacktip. Is that what that is?
Uh-huh.
How old of a shark would that be? Do we know? Or
how old what?
How old of a shark would that be? Full grown?
Oh, I don't know. He was six feet long, so I don't know how they age or.
And what's the theory? He was jumping up for food, or?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's 2 guys in the photo. You can see it on my website, KemMcNair.com. But you could see him, the guy in the back, and the surfer surfer even saw the shark. Didn't even know it was there at all. It just happened to jump right in my picture.
Right. Yeah.
So
how often, when you're swimming and surfing in these waters, will you see a shark just swimming by? Is it often?
When the water's clear?
Whenever.
All the time. All the time. It's no problem to ride when the waves are 5-6 feet, to ride a wave and see 3 different sharks on the same wave. Like they're there all the time. And then when it's dirty, you're not seeing them, but they're there. They're still swimming around doing their thing.
Can you distinguish them between, because I go to that area a lot, can you distinguish them between dolphins? Is it easy to spot
absolutely.
them?
Yeah. Dolphins don't swim anything like sharks.
Right.
If you see a shark swimming and you see his dorsal fin, you'll usually see his tail fin because it's vertical, the same area as his dorsal fin. And so his tail goes left to right, back and forth. And a dolphin tail is horizontal, and it goes up and down. So if you see a fin come up and there's no tail behind it, it's a dolphin usually, 99% of the time.
Right.
So he may have, had his tail dragging down in the water, but usually, it's a dolphin with no tail fin, and then a shark if it has a tail fin.
I know Kathleen, who's in studio here, years ago, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, we were down at New Smyrna, probably standing in, I don't know, knee-deep water maybe. I don't know, not even that. And all of a sudden, like right in front of you.
Sure.
And I even said to her, I said, "Did you just see that?" And she goes, "Yeah." I go, "Is that a shark?" She goes, "Yeah." I mean, it was in, but it was like a bullet coming flying by. He was obviously chasing fish or something. Yep. So to think like when you're, how like when you go with your family or you just go swimming in the, this particular area and you think, oh, I'm only in a, I can see everything. Mm-hmm. They still come in that water. They'll still come in. I think they would beach themselves if they could, if they were chasing food.
They're pushing fish up against the shore.
As much as they can. Yeah.
They got half of the equation is in their favor.
Right.
So a few months ago, I was surfing and I came riding a wave in. And I was I usually ride my longboard all the way to the fin hits, and then I'll step off in ankle deep water. And the lifeguard tower was right in front of me. And as I was riding in, here comes about a 5 or 6 foot blacktip swimming right toward the rail of my board. And I went right past him. And about another 4 or 5 feet, here's another one swimming right along. And I get to the beach and step off and look, and there's a lady and 2 little kids out there, 30 feet past where I just went. And I yelled at the lifeguard, and I go, "Dude, you need to get these people in, and there's 2 sharks right here." And he blew his whistle and, said, "Come in." So I was concerned for their safety because they're just standing there.
Well, we've all seen the aerial video of, from the helicopters or the planes and, from here to Miami, and there's people, thousands of people swimming, and there's a, 9-foot shark swimming right next to them, and the people have no clue. Yeah. We've all seen that. So, it's probably best that we don't know what's lurking near us.
I've got a crazy little story. I was down on Bethune Beach a couple months ago. My brother was down, and they had rented a house right there on the ocean. And we're up on the 2nd floor, and the waves were super teeny. And this kid, about 9-year-old kid, had walked out through the first slough and onto the second sandbar, and the water was crystal clear. And I looked down the beach, and there's this big brown thing coming down the beach, and I couldn't tell what it was. And I go, "Oh, no, it's either a school of fish, it's a manatee, it's a shark, it's not a dolphin." I would know a dolphin. And it's kind of going along under the water, and it gets a little bit closer, and all of a sudden I see a snout poke up, and it's a manatee. And I get to my relatives. There's a bunch of them standing up. I go, "Watch this. This is going to be hilarious," because manatee are super inquisitive. And this kid's standing in waist deep water, looking to the south, and the manatee's coming from the north, and he goes right over and bumps into this kid.
Oh my goodness!
And the kid freaked.
Oh, I can imagine. Well,
he jumped
big,
about 10 feet in the air.
Manatees are.
Saw this big thing behind him, and he took off running on top of the water almost to get to the beach. So.
Have a heart attack. Yeah, sea cows. I mean, they're just huge,
Yeah. And they're real friendly, too.
Yeah, they are. But even like when you swim with them, when they all of a sudden they make a sudden move, too, it's like this giant bumping into you. So I want to get your thoughts about this. I've done a bunch of shark dives in my life. I've been near a lot of sharks myself diving, and I am absolutely convinced, but I want to get your thoughts on this, that sharks are really not out to get us in any way. They are not stalking us. They are not predators in the way we think of a predator, like a tiger or something. I think most of the bites and even the deaths are purely accidental. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, they as many as I've seen, there's never been one that was stalking somebody. Let's back up on that. When I was years ago, I was on a little teeny 5'10" fish, which is a really little short board with two fins on it, and the waves are super small, 2 foot. And I'm laying on my board paddling along, and something comes up and hits my knee. What was that? And I look back and I don't see anything, and paddle along a couple more strokes, and it did it again. What was that? And there's a girl sitting right there, and I go, "Did you see that? What was that?" She goes, "A little 2 foot shark. He swam up on the back of your board and tried to bite your knee." And I go, "What?" And he did it again. And I said, "Okay, I'm going in."
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if a 2-footer can bite you or not, but they don't have a very, very big mouth, that big.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's weird, too. New Smyrna is known for this being the shark bite capital of the world. It really doesn't scare people away. People don't seem really, either they know. I mean, I'm thinking about all the tourists that come down there. I don't think they even know, what this place, what's really out there.
Your chances of being bit are your chances of being killed by a coconut are way higher, and chances of being killed by a cow are way higher.
Or run over by a car on New Smyrna.
Yeah, or that too.
There's cars on the beach for people that have never
think
been
about
there.
How many millions of people are on New Smyrna Beach.
Yeah.
In a whole year, and we have maybe 8 or 10 or 12 shark bites. So it's just it's astronomical odds that you would be bit. And if you do get bit, most people drive themselves to the hospital, and they get a few stitches here and there, and it's mostly little puncture marks because their teeth aren't very big. So.
Well, it's weird because you'll see all these specials, especially like on Discovery Channel and other cable outlets. They will do so many shark specials, and people love this kind of stuff, and they are really freaked out about sharks. I mean, they really believe that these creatures are out to get them, stalk them, eat them, tear them apart. And I just think it is so far from the truth about these animals.
Yeah, they're not. They could care less about us. They're just out to get a meal, which is fish. And if your foot's happens to be dangling in a school of fish when they swim by, they go, "Oh, there's a slow fish. I'll bite him." And they do bite him. My friend Chip Clark was paddling out by the jetty and went to punch through a wave, about a 4 or 5 foot wave, and they do something called a duck dive. You just push your nose down into the wave and punch through as the wave breaks over you. And there's a school of fish running through the wave, and he punches down and does like that, and a shark bites him on the shoulder and just knocks him silly, and he gets knocked off his board, and he comes up, and the people on the jetty were right there. They saw it.
Right.
And they started freaking out, and Chip's looking at his shoulder, and he's bleeding and stuff, and he's not freaking out. He was just in the shark's domain, and the shark was doing what it does, and he just happened to get in the way, and it bit him. And it wasn't a bad thing. He went in, and the lifeguards messed with his shoulder a little bit, and then he went to the hospital, and they cleaned it out, and he was okay. But it's just one of those freaky things. He pulled out in front of the shark, and the shark was in the traffic lane. So
are those lifeguards at New Smyrna, are they prepared for shark bites? Are they?
Yeah, they're never very bad. Nobody's ever had a calf torn off or an ankle torn off or anything. Then once the shark bites and figures out, oh, this is all bony and there's no meat on there, I'm not going to eat that. They let go and then they swim away. So there's never been a double bite that I've ever heard of.
No.
Unless it was two sharks, coming after the same prey, and they both happen to hit you together or something. That's because the first one goes, no, that's not my meal.
I was just saying, it is weird though that the sharks, because they're so hungry, like any other animal or like people. It is funny that they don't just go, you know what, I've already bitten into this guy. It is amazing. Think about it, that they don't tear the meat off and try to eat us, because I would think it would. I would think it would taste okay, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I've never bitten a leg before.
Well,
but,
I eat them all the time. Yeah.
The fact that they bite down on us and let us go immediately tells me that we're not their prey, and they know that. They've eaten enough fish in their lifetime to know, well, that's not a fish, or even their sensory organs on their snout lets them scan the area and tell you what's going on, and all of a sudden there's this big thing that they've never encountered before. They go, nah.
It's still weird, though. It is still kind of mysterious to me why there are so many bites there, though. I'm still a little puzzled because I've been to much more crowded beaches on the west coast of the United States and in South Florida, and there's just not near as many reported shark bites. Or
Well, was the water clear?
Well, it's different everywhere. I mean, have you been surfing like to Southern California and stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you've been in that water. I mean, there's not people getting bit as much there as there.
No, but when those sharks, the blacktips, or not the blacktips, but the great whites bite you,
yeah,
you got
problems.
Serious stuff to worry about. I've been in Hawaii and seen big sharks.
Yeah.
You know, when you're sitting in super crystal clear water and it's 20 feet deep and there's rocks on the bottom and the water kind of undulates and you see these big shadow things underneath you, it'll freak you out if you're from the East Coast because you don't ever see that. And then you see a shark swim by, and that could easily be a tiger shark, and they'll come right up and just chomp down on anything. They don't care, beer can, a car tag, anything. They'll eat it. So
I kind of made a joke as we first started talking about old old surf movies and stuff like that. What's your thought about surfers, man? They're a unique breed of people, both men and women. You've been surfing since the 60s. What makes surfers tick, man? Is it just getting out there doing it, or what goes?
First off, it's if you ever do it once, you will never. It's never the same twice. It's not like you'll ever catch the same wave twice in a row. Sometimes if you went to a perfect point break and it was breaking on the same reef over and over and over, you might be able to pull that off. But in the ocean, every wave's different. So if I go out and surf 15 waves today, all of them are completely different, So it's always a total variation. The characters that are in the water are just the widest gamut of people. And I've got doctors and lawyers.
Right.
And
yeah, people don't realize that. Yeah. Professionals.
Yeah, that are super smart people. There's a guy I ran into the other day that's a physicist, and he just looks like an old surfer dude, and we were talking about surfboard design and this and that, and then my friend tells me later, oh yeah, Wayne, he's a physicist. I go, what? Never would have known that unless you ask him what he does or whatever. I met a guy at the Inlet was in the CIA for a long time, and. There's all kinds of varied, crazy people in the water.
So is the Spicoli cliche gone? Is there still that guy out there?
Well, there might be a few of those guys around. There's a couple of idiots hanging around.
Well, no, I don't know. Spicoli's not an idiot, is he?
No, but
no, he was. You're right.
There's guys around that are a little flaky.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did too much acid in the old days or something. But
I'm sure. Of course.
There's the whole gamut of everybody out there. So.
You surfed competitively, right?
Yeah, I did that for a long time. When I was a little kid, we had a big contest come to New Smyrna, and back in the day, there were the big surf teams from all the big surf companies, Hobie surfboards and Weber surfboards and Kahn surfboards, and they were all from Cocoa. And New Smyrna was completely unknown, and we had a big contest come to New Smyrna, 1968 maybe, 67 maybe. And all the big teams showed up. And Gary Proper was on the Hobie team, and he was a famous inside of Surfer Magazine, every issue, Hobie surfboards, Gary Proper model. So he was like John Wayne of surfing.
Yeah.
So
you couldn't believe it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a little kid, and I'm out in my heat, and I was in the semifinals, I think. And my friend Jane O'Hara, who owned a surf shop here in town, was scoring for him. And I took off in this wave, and Jane tells Gary, says, Kem's going to win this contest. And Gary goes, who's Kem? And she goes, that's him right there. And I did the best drop knee cutback I've ever done in my whole life on that wave for some reason, and turned around and took off down the line on the wave. And that impressed him a lot. And he told Janie, he says, if he wins this contest, tell him to come talk to me. I'll put him on the Hobie team. And the Hobie team was the elite team to be on. You could ever, be on in your whole life was the Hobie team. So I come out of the winter. Janie says, Gary said he'll put you on the Hobie team if you win the contest. So I'm just like on cloud nine, adrenaline pumping 100 miles an hour. And I end up going out and surfing in the finals, won the contest and came in. And I was scared to go up and talk to him because he was like, a movie star. And he was sitting in the Hobie surf team van, and Dick Cattree, who's famous in Florida, is a famous surfer, was the team coach. And he was driving, and Gary was sitting in the passenger seat. And van cranks up, and they start to back out. And I haven't talked to him yet. And I go running up to the window finally and tap on the window, and he rolls the window down. And he goes, "Oh, hey, you're the kid that won the contest. Here's my number. Call me. You're on the Hobie team.
Is that your phone?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I guess we'll start over.
You're fine. Keep going. Just turn it off.
Okay. Let's see. Remind me.
There you
go.
go. Just shut it off. There we go.
Okay.
Turn it off. Vibrate.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I didn't cancel.
Hey, man. That's okay.
Okay. Let's see. I forgot how to even turn it off.
Yeah. Well, just, you know what? Just set it down.
I don't get but a couple calls a week, so I don't think it's any big deal.
So did you surf competitively a lot after that, or?
Well, I was on the Hobie team at that time, and we went to all the contests.
Right.
And I believe it was '68. I won the Florida State Championships in Daytona Beach, and the night before the contest, I got my board stolen. So I went there with no board and borrowed a guy's board, and it rode about 40 times better than my Hobie. And so I ended up winning the contest on that. And then that year, the following year, '69, we went all the way up the coast in Rhode Island and surfed a whole bunch of contests down the coast. And the first one, I didn't do so good. The second one, I was going to get eliminated. And the Hobie team coach, Cattree, told me, if you don't, I'm going to put you on the paddle contest. If you don't win the paddle contest, I'm going to ship you back to Florida. And I'm a little kid, and he brings me this giant Hobie log that weighs 40 pounds with a big old ugly fin on it. And I look down the line, there's like 20 guys in this line. They're all got racing paddle boards and big old lifeguards with muscles and stuff. And they go, we're going to get up to the line, and we're going to go out about 200 yards, down about 200 yards, and back in again. So I used to do this thing called a run turn. And you run down to the water, and you throw your board in the water, and you jump on it, and you ride the board out, and then you hit the wave and ricochet off the wave. So the waves are about 5 foot breaking right on the beach. And a big set comes, and the guy goes, 1, 2, 3, blows a whistle. Everybody goes running down the beach. And I throw my board in the water and do a run, like I'm going to do a run turn, jump on the board, and the wave peaks up and starts to break, and I punch right through the wave. And everybody else gets cleaned up and washed back up the beach. And I've got like about a 50, 60-yard head start on everybody. And I go all the way out around the buoy, all the way down around the buoy, coming back in. And right when the waves are starting to peak up where they're going to break, waves are about 6, 7, 8 feet. This big set comes, and this guy passes me, this young guy, on a racing paddleboard. Passes me rather. And as he goes by, I go, I got to catch this wave or he's going to beat me. So I'm paddling as hard as I can, and I'm almost out of air. I've been paddling so hard. So I miss the wave, and he catches the wave. And all of a sudden, he drops in on his knees and pearls. The nose dives under at the bottom, and the board shoots up in the air, and he eats it. And I catch the next wave and pass him and beat him by about 30, 40 yards and end up running up the beach. And Cattree is there, and he picks me up. I get across the finish line. He picks me up and squeezes me and just screaming and hollering, jumping up and down like that I won. And he puts me down, and I go over down the side, and I throw up because I've been paddling so hard. So, totally cool.
So how does Florida surfers, do they get shit because it's Florida? And do we get respect in Florida as surfers compared to California, Hawaii, Costa Rica?
Since Kelly Slater came along, there's nobody better in the world. The guy's 11-time world champion. Nobody will ever beat that record. And he's from little old Cocoa Beach. And
do you think what made him a great surfer was because maybe the waves aren't as big as other places? He had to fight for it?
Well,
Any theory
I don't know.
on that?
I think when you surf small surf all the time and you get some big waves, there's so much more fun and so much more energy. And it's just like graduating from a Volkswagen to a Ferrari. You want to get on it, So all that energy is pent up from surfing little waves all the time, and you just go crazy. So he just took all that stigma away. There's absolutely no stigma about being from Florida ever again.
Was it there before that?
There's always been good surfers in Florida, and you go to Huntington Beach. I've been surfed in the U.S. contests there a bunch of times, and usually the waves are worse there than they are in Florida. And there's been a couple times when it's been good, but it's usually 2 foot and closing out right on the beach. And guys from Florida just did well there, and the California guys just didn't do so well, And there's been a bunch of guys won it from Florida. So
we really we rank pretty good with that, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's weird. You were talking. It was interesting. You were talking about like Surfing Magazine. I grew up in the Midwest. Grew up near Chicago, and obviously we didn't have the waves on Lake Michigan. So really, what became a big part of my life was skateboarding. Skateboarding was huge for me, and we used to sneak into swimming pools, empty swimming pools in the Midwest, and we'd flip through like Surfer Magazine and just stare at it. And it's funny when you were talking about some of the guys there, I know who you're talking about. And it was so important to us. And same thing with what was Skateboarder Magazine. We'd literally flip through each page and study it like it was a Bible. Like they would do moves, and you were talking about your camera with a winder doing, getting multiple shots. When somebody would pop out of a swimming pool with their board, do a front side aerial, we would look at it and just go, that's got to be fake photography. It's impossible. How would he do that?
How did he get in the air like that? Yeah.
And then they would print like step by step, and you'd start, because there wasn't video back in these days. It wasn't all accessible. And, or I just go to YouTube now and I see how a guy, did a double backflip out of a swimming pool or whatever, off a ramp or whatever. But it was so important, that magazine. I just can't tell you, when you were living in a place where there was nowhere to go surfing and practice and that, it was our life. And we looked at those people, and when you were talking about meeting him, it, like when you'd see somebody like Tony Hawk, it was like, oh my God, it's him.
And how did he get so good at that?
You just were.
I used to skateboard every evening when I was a little kid. I had a Hobie skateboard, believe it or not.
That's what got me thinking about Hobie was one of the first skateboards out there.
With decent wheels on.
Yeah, right. The first kind of urethane wheels that I remember. Yeah.
The first time I ever skateboarded, now you're going to laugh at this, and you've heard this a million times, 2x4 with steel wheels on it.
Yeah, the old roller skate wheels. Do you remember those?
Took them off a set of skates, nailed them onto a 2x4, and the approach at Flagler Avenue that goes down on the beach, a little hill right there.
Yeah, right.
We would skate down that thing on this 2x4, and the steel wheels have absolutely no traction on concrete and sand at all.
On the vibration, remember that? It was like...
So you would
like
go down and turn, and the thing would slide out from under you, and all we had on was our baggies. So we would have just strawberries all over our ankles and knees, and we would just do that. Everybody would trade off that little skateboard and try to do that. So they progressed a lot after that.
Well, the whole urethane wheel and the mounted trucks then eventually on the boards, and all that got better and better. But I got to tell you, from somebody that grew up in the Midwest, it was such reading Surfer Magazine, and it was just this. I guess we just didn't have a lot going on in the wintertime or something like that. But it was sort of this fantasy world of flipping through those pages and just studying these people. And they were these people that were in these magazines. I'm thinking now skateboarding, like Tony Alva and Jay Adams and Tony Hawk, and the list goes on. These were...
And I think it's so good for your balance. I have a Carver skateboard now, and you wouldn't think an old guy like me would ride a skateboard, because if you fall down, you're probably never going to get up.
Right.
But it has an articulated truck on the front that has a spring-loaded thing in it. And when you turn, it stores the energy in that spring. And when you come out of the turn, it accelerates you out of the turn. And so you can just take off on a flat street and never have to push one time. You can just start turning and it starts picking up speed, and you can go for 3 miles and never push one time. And it's a great trainer for surfing.
It is, because I got to tell you something. I skateboarded before I surfed, and the first time I surfed, got up immediately. I think I was like in Smyrna Beach, California.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was just like, I think I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can handle this. I got pounded a couple times after that, but the mechanics of it all, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an unbelievable trainer. And if I go in the wintertime, it's real cold for a couple of weeks, I don't surf or the waves are real bad, I'll go out and ride my skateboard for 10 or 15 minutes each day. And when I get back in the water, I'm totally dialed in and can surf just normally. If I had gone those 2 or 3 weeks, surfing's not like riding a bicycle. If you don't do it for a while, you'll get pretty bad at it pretty quick. I mean, your paddle strength goes, and it's hard to catch a wave, and then your ability to jump up, which is super critical. That amount of time that it goes from laying down to standing up, that's one of the most critical things you need to learn to do to keep the board from purling when you drop in. I'll see novice surfers at the Inlet all the time, and they'll drop in and purl, and the board will go flying up in the air and hit them in the head. I go, guy, you got to stand up quicker.
Yeah.
If you stand up quick, then you're standing on the tail of the board. You can lift the nose up and keep that from happening.
Did you go to the skate parks at all during your...
No, I've never skated a skate park.
Yeah, that was a big deal when those came along, and you had to pay back in those days. now the cities are building them, for youngsters, but it was a big deal, to see a full cement pipe that you could go in, and half pipes that went on for blocks. It was
that would be fun.
It was amazing. But there's an art to it, man. Then it becomes different than surfing. Then it becomes a different feel.
I've got a couple of friends in New Smyrna, Eric and Evan Geiselman, they're basically pro surfers. And I think Evan's like number 17 in the world in the QS right now. And they had a big ramp in their backyard with a foam thing that they could get on this ramp, and they would practice doing aerials. And both of them are some of the best aerialists in the world.
Really?
And Eric got invited to the big pro contest in, where was it, Indonesia or something recently, and he was in the final. And if he would have landed either one of the ones that he tried, he would have won the thing hands down. I think he got second or third. But it trains them on dry land to be able to pull that off. I've done an aerial back in the old days, and I never even knew I did one. And my friend,
the board slipped out from underneath you.
I think I went up and hit the lip.
Right.
And I hit it so hard till I just flew through the air for a while. I don't know if I landed or made it or anything. But my friend Pat Altez sent me a picture. He was a photographer for the magazines. Sent me a picture a couple of years ago of me doing an aerial in 1971 or something.
Right.
And I go,
you were ahead of your time.
I never knew that I ever did an aerial, and there's the proof right there in the picture. So.
When we started this interview, you talked a little bit about your hearing, switching gears here. You like music, and I wore this hat for you today because I'm a big music buff as well. I don't play in a band, but you do. You like to play. You like to crank it up.
I played for a long, long time. I played guitar for 55 years. Got my first guitar when I was 13. Got my first surfboard when I was 13, and they just all grew together. And went over to my buddy's house one time, and he had an acoustic guitar, and I never picked one up. And he showed me Louie Louie, and I learned a song, and it was curtains after that. I just had to play all the time. And my mom bought me a guitar for Christmas from Sears catalog or something, and I just kept playing. And my best friend to this day, we both had electric guitars. We had, gone to amps and electric guitars, and we would play all the time. And then finally, we got a surf shop in New Smyrna, and we set our band up in the back and could rehearse back there anytime. That's the main thing about a band, is having a place to rehearse.
Right.
Because there's never any place to rehearse. You can't find a spot that you can leave your gear set up and just come in anytime you want. and do that. So it was kind of isolated because there were rooms all the way around the area. So there's an airspace between the inside room when all the doors closed and that outside. And so you could sit on, it was on Flagler Avenue in New Smyrna, a block back from the beach.
Okay.
And we could be in there rocking as loud as we wanted to play, and you could barely hear it on the street. And we were able to do that for years. And our first gig ever was at the Smyrna Theater. And
what year would this have been, roughly?
Probably 73, maybe.
Okay.
And there were a couple bands that went on before us, and the place was packed. They had a stage in the theater, believe it or not, and they showed movies on the screen. And so the couple of bands played before us, and we had never been on stage live ever. And we got up there and we had this crazy thing where we were going to start out and we're all going to hold our guitars and hold an E chord and just rumble on the neck up here. And our drummer was amazing. I mean, this guy was so good. It was ridiculous. And so we start out this little, and we got our backs to the audience. And all of a sudden, he comes in with this insane drum beat, like Led Zeppelin kind of thing. And the place went berserk, and everybody jumped up out of their seats and just, crammed right down against the stage. And we played our whole show and went off stage out the side door, and they called us back on. And we did another song, and we went off. And they called us back on. We did that 5 standing ovations that night, and we'd never been on stage before. And I was so high from adrenaline when that show was over, till it was the best feeling in the world.
You were hooked.
Oh, it was insane. It was.
So what's a better high, that or surfing?
That was pretty high up on the scale.
Right? Crowd loving you?
Yeah. That's some heavy feedback right there when that happens, because you're totally connected with the audience.
So what's your genre of music that you like to this day? What category do you fall into?
I play some jazzy stuff, not outside jazz, but more contemporary jazz stuff. I play blues. I play Stevie Ray Vaughan, Creedence Clearwater kind of stuff, Zeppelin, Hendrix, all that stuff. I love all that stuff, and I've played a lot of it. It's our band nowadays. We only play a couple of gigs a year for the Safari Club over in New Smyrna.
Yeah,
and we just go there. We never rehearse. We just show up, and it's been a whole year since we played. Everybody's been playing 40, 50 years, so we all just kind of go, well, what do you want to play? I don't know, how about this? Who's going to sing it? I will. Okay, what key? Okay, go. And somebody click it off, and we'll play the whole night like that. And the band really was good at improv. You've heard of these improv bands, you know. We were always good at that. And every time we would take a break, no matter where it was, we would play a 5-minute jam at the end of the set. And we never knew what was. Somebody would just start something, we'd just play off it and do that.
And go.
So the band has always had that ability to go there and do that. So we can play just about anything. If somebody has 2 or 3 chords, we can just kind of fake our way through it,
So as a musician, any thoughts about music today, where it's headed? I don't know, I mean, you must have some opinions on that.
Boy, it's a mess. It's totally a mess.
Now, why do you say that? What?
The record business is just such a scam. It's
fucked up, isn't it?
It's amazing. It just blows my mind how they dangle these carrots in front of people. Like America's Got Talent and what's the other one? The Voice. All those shows basically.
American Idol.
Have to sign these ridiculous contracts where they might get.
They really own them, don't they? After that,
totally.
Yeah.
And they might be incredible talents.
Right.
And they'll come along say they only got 50% of what they're going to make for the next 10 years.
Right.
The agent gets 15 or 20%. The record company is going to get a percentage of that. The
manager.
Yeah, the manager. So they end up with like 5 or 6%.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Out of that 100%.
Right.
And I guess if you sell enough at records,
I don't know,
or you stream enough records, you might make some money. But
they would probably argue on their side, without that show, nobody would ever know who you are, right?
Exactly.
Is that what they would say?
Exactly. Every A&R or record company guy gets 250, records or CDs or whatever they got now.
Right.
However they're coming in on thumb drives or whatever, 250 a day, and they might listen to 3 or 4 of them.
Right.
And a lot of it's payola still to this day.
Is it?
Yeah, they will end up, greasing his palm. Here, take a listen to this.
It used to be a line of Coke or something,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
well, I don't know if they're doing that, but they'll end up giving them $100 or something
Right.
to take a listen. And my friend Billy Chapin was in the Backstreet Boys, and he saw the whole inside of that whole thing, how it all worked, and he's an engineer producer now to this day, and an incredible engineer and a great songwriter. He writes songs with Stan Lynch, the drummer for Tom Petty, up in St. Augustine all the time.
Right.
Was just up there a week or two ago. Was in Nashville 6 months ago and did the Don Henley album. And was running Pro Tools. Stan was there being the producer, and Billy was in another studio and said, the Pro Tools guy didn't show up. Can you run Pro Tools? And he goes in and meets Don Henley. And that week that he was there, he met Trisha Yearwood, Brad Paisley, Dolly Parton, Vince Gill. And these guys were coming in to sing backups on Henley's stuff. And Billy was recording these guys.
Nice.
And Stan would go, and they've got the A-list players, studio guys from Nashville
Nashville's amazing.
These tunes. And every time there would be a break, these guys would start jamming. And Stan would go, Billy, hit record. And here's a 5-minute jam of these guys just going off, just playing all kinds of crazy stuff. And Billy said he came out of there with his mouth hanging down. Every day he would hear the best players in the world just doing their thing, for 5 minutes, just having fun,
So what is a young band, like if you're a young band like you guys were, and let's just say you were really serious about music, what do you do today to get in front of people, to even get them? I think about this a lot. I actually do. Like I think about it when I watch the singing shows or I watch America's Got Talent. Like I don't know what you do now except light yourself on fire and hope people don't get up and go get something to eat.
The songwriting has to be incredible. They got to be some weird little niche like, what's that band this sounds like Led Zeppelin that just came out from up in Ohio? Robert Plant goes, I hate that guy, the singer. It sounds just like me.
There's an endorsement.
Yeah. And what's their... can't think of their name right now, but they're a really good band, and they just happen to go bam. They sound like Led Zeppelin. And everybody goes, Led Zeppelin, wow, and they all jump on that bandwagon. If you can find something so unique, there's so much rap music going on. I never have understood it.
But is rock and roll dead though? Is it could we see that disappear just like I thought about this. Could that disappear like big band music? Because you got to be honest. If you turn on a rock and roll station, they're not playing new rock and roll bands.
No, there's none.
It's just classic rock.
There's none. And if you look at Guitar Player magazine every month, every guy on the cover is an old guy. Like
hey, what's that?
Page,
Eddie Van Halen.
Just on and on and on.
It's right. Yeah. So is it dead? Is it going to be? The Stones. I just saw them. I mean, is it over once these guys die off?
Tom Petty kicked the bucket. There's no more Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers because the Heartbreakers can't do it without him. So what are they going to do? Find some, like Journey did, find some guy that sounds exactly like Steve Perry and throw him up there, and they can continue to play because the guy is amazing.
Amazing.
He sounds just like...
It's stunning. Yeah.
So... I don't know. It wouldn't be Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It would be just the Heartbreakers or some guy.
But I'm thinking there's not even a venue. Like, in other words, there's not a venue. There's not radio stations anymore. If you were an up-and-coming Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Stones, Elton John, there's nowhere to play this music if you were up-and-coming with this. Is there? Am I missing it?
No, you're not. Where's the market? All of us old guys, we love that stuff. And there's young people that I've been on surf trips with some young kids and stuff and turned them on to so-and-so, and they go, wow, that's really good. Where'd you find that? And,
Right.
you know, you tell them 4 or 5 bands, go listen to these guys. And they just go, wow, that's because they're not getting that stuff pushed on them.
Right. Well, like even when Tom Petty was alive, if they came out with a new album, you'd never hear it unless you were a true fan and you'd go seek it out. There was no stations cranking out the latest from Tom Petty, you know, and that's the truth about, you know, if AC/DC comes out with a new song, you're not going to hear it on the radio. It isn't going to happen. No. Nobody's going to play it.
Yeah,
so I
don't know how a kid would make it nowadays. I mean, Billy produces bands all the time, and they're really good. And the amount of talent that's out there, you know, I don't know where he shops his stuff, but he has somebody he knows in a record company, and it'll send it to him. And I'll hear about this person 6 months down the road, and they're working on a cruise ship or something, you know. And
right,
it's like, okay, at least they're working, you know. It's like,
yeah, it's weird. I think about these bands. I guess I'm thinking like a band like the Killers, and you know, I guess that's considered rock, right? I mean, still is.
I never listened to the Killers, so
anyways, stuff like that. I just feel like this is all gonna. I think this is just gonna go to the wayside, and you know, it's like pop music, and it's mainly, to me, it's mainly females. You know, is what you hear in pop music today.
Well, there's only about 2 or 3 writers that write about 90% of the pop music
right?
you hear. These guys, they got a formula for those tunes, and they use the same progressions. I just saw there's a guy, Rick Beato, in Atlanta. That's an amazing music teacher on YouTube, and he has like 1 million followers or something. And he just talked about those guys, those 3 or 4 people that are two of them are in England, I believe. There's a guy in Nashville, and all these Katy Perrys and all these, you know, Adele and all these other people that are
females. Yeah.
They all have these guys write their songs for them, and if you look on their album, you know, it won't be written by Adele and it won't be written by Katy Perry.
Right.
It's by and that guy might even use a different name or something to keep it from coming up so much, you know. But they're raking in all the money, the songwriters, because they get a big chunk of the pie.
You go back and you just like put on like a CD or an album of like a band like Boston, like listen to their first album.
Amazing.
It's stunning.
It is.
How good that stuff is. I don't care who you are. You could put it on for a young person and they'd go, I think they would go, yeah, it's pretty good. You know? I mean, that stuff was incredible. You know, even early Journey stuff, and, you know, amazing.
Those were great songwriters, and you know, it was spread out over a lot of good bands, but every so often somebody would hit that amazing tune that just struck a chord with everybody, and there's amazing lyrics and amazing melodies, and everybody just went to that song, and it became a huge hit. You know, and then you look at a song like I was thinking about this the other day, The Police, da do 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 da da da. That song was played so much till it never got played again. You don't ever hear that song anywhere,
right? Because
they just ground it into people's heads, and they just got sick of it. You know, so that can happen too, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if rock and roll just falls off a cliff, and I don't know. Maybe it'll come back, but. Yeah. You're kind of a Renaissance man to me. You know that? When I think about you, you're not only surfing, not only music, but you're an artist, man. You like to paint, don't you?
I've been doing art my whole life, and I was lucky enough. I had been doing it a long time, and I was lucky enough to stumble across a guy in Daytona. I tried to get a job in Orlando doing computer graphics, and I did land a job with a software publishing company called Scott Adams Adventure International. The guy wrote the first computer adventure game, and I did all the graphics for him on an old Apple II computer, and the pixels on the screen were so big till they were about as big as a big pinpoint, you know. Like a bold pinpoint. And I did work for him for like 3 or 4 years, and we did work for Marvel Comics, and it was archaic, and we would get pencil drawings from Marvel. We were doing the Incredible Hulk and Spider-Man and all these things, and I would put them, believe it or not, I had an Apple II computer with a graphics tablet, and there was no graphic software for it, and it was all written in-house by the programmers. I would be sitting there and I'm drawing, over this pencil sketch, and I need something that would draw a circle, a perfect circle. And I'd go into the programmers and I'd go, hey, can you guys, here's my disk, can you write me a little program to draw a circle? And I'll put it on one of the little tabs over here, and you can click on it now. You can draw a circle of any size you want. And they would write that and give it back to me. I'd plug it in my Apple and boot it up, and now I can draw a circle. And it was completely archaic back in the day, but it was what was going on. And so after the computer graphics thing, fizzled out, that company basically didn't stay up with the technology. And I ended up, I think I went back and started building surfboards, and built a lot of surfboards.
And painting surfboards, right?
I painted probably 9,000 or 10,000 surfboards.
Yeah.
And they would be, I'm always kind of thinking outside the box. So at that time, I was getting $17 a side to paint a surfboard. And you could do pretty much whatever you wanted, unless it was an order. The guy wanted specific stripes on it. Or
what do you use to paint a surfboard? What
acrylic
kind of
paint on the foam.
Okay.
Before the board's glassed, and an airbrush.
Yeah.
And so you could airbrush little intricate things, or you could tape it all off and do hard edges and fades and whatever you want to do. And so you could end up basically painting a board one side for $17, and both sides, you're getting $32 for a side. And we were doing 40, 50 boards a week, and you had to get pretty quick at it. And a lot of them were just basically, if you've got a surfboard shaped like this, color on the rails, okay? And it would be just red all the way around the whole board. So I figured out a way. Before, when you would do that, you would have to draw a line all the way around the board and tape that whole inside off, flip the board over, tape the whole bottom off, and then spray the rail with an airbrush all the way around. And then put that out in the sun and let it dry, and then come back and peel the tape off or whatever. So I figured out a way to take one of those big painting pads, they're about this long, and they got little white hairs about that long on them. You've seen them probably. And I would take my red paint and I would squirt it down the middle of the pad, and I would put it on the rail of the board, and I would just walk all the way down the rail to the nose, and all the way down the rail to that way, flip the board over, do it all the way back that way. Had a perfect line all the way around the board in like 30 seconds. I was able to paint that rail, set it out in the sun, let it dry, and I did a whole bunch of boards for this guy. And he came in and saw me do that and freaked out that I was getting $17. It took me 30 seconds.
I don't need him anymore.
Well, and he got mad at me and said he was going to cut my pay every time I did one of those. I can only get $5 for doing that. So,
but now you're painting canvas, right?
I paint all kinds of stuff, watercolors and acrylics, and the computer graphics at some point when I worked for, I was going to tell you about this guy, Bob Dorman, in Daytona years ago that I used to work. I was drawing T-shirt designs, and he was an amazing artist, just as good as it gets, and painted in oils and just did the most amazing. You've seen the guy, what's his face from down south that does all the fish paintings on everybody's T-shirts? Guy Harvey.
Guy Harvey, yep.
Bob was as good as this guy or better.
Right.
And did big sailfish.
Guy Harvey's got his pictures now on the side of cruise ships.
Yeah, he's done well with promotion. And Bob was just as good as this guy. Bob's passed away since then, but I went to work for this guy, and he sat behind me for about 5 years, and we would design things together. And we'd be doing a design for Daytona International Speedway for the 500. He would sit behind me, and we would talk about okay, well, we need a car doing this, and we need some stars over here, and with the flames coming out, and this and that. And he would kind of have it in his head. And after working with the guy for so long, I just kind of by osmosis picked up what this guy was doing. He told me one time he lived out in the Southwest, and he was painting horses and cowboys and that whole thing. And he went to a gallery out there somewhere and did a one-man show. Took 7 paintings with him and sold all the paintings that evening. Came home with $110,000 for 7 paintings.
Whoa!
That's how good the stuff was. And so I learned to oil paint from the guy and water, and he could paint and draw with anything, pencil, watercolor, gouache, oils, acrylics, it didn't matter, pen and ink. And so just being around this guy for a long time, it just really broadened my whole horizon. And so, doing the computer graphic stuff, I've been doing Photoshop since version 2, which is over 20 years. And people, when my shark picture came out, they go, that's Photoshop. You Photoshopped that in.
Right. They probably accused you of that. Never thought of that.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I sent the original original 3 files to the guy that was at the Canon photo forum.
Right.
And said, here,
you look at it.
Bail me out.
Right.
And he did. He said, these photos have never been touched. And this is exactly what happened. And then a few years later, I think it was a show called Is It True on the Discovery Channel. Call me up and go, hey, we want to come down and do a thing about your shark picture, see if it's fake or not.
Right.
And I go, it's not fake. I mean, but you can come down and do it anyway.
Right, of course.
So I don't know if you've ever know the comedian Chuck Nice.
Yeah.
Black guy.
Yeah, black guy. Yeah, he's good. I like his stuff.
He's with Neil deGrasse Tyson on Discovery Channel all the time. They sent him down to do the interview. And the whole week they had been telling him he was coming to the shark bite capital of the world and we're going to go surfing. And it's in the wintertime. And so they show up on this Friday morning or something, and it was so cold. It was 28 degrees. And we went to the beach, and I had on a ski hat and a big giant parka and gloves and everything. And I'm on the beach with this guy, and we're walking down the beach, and there's not a soul on the beach except a couple lifeguard trucks.
Phone or text this time?
Okay.
All right, we got it.
I like my Ugo horn.
I like it.
Nice?
That was good.
So we're walking down the beach, and he's asking me about this and that, and I'm going to take him out surfing. So I got him a surfboard and a wetsuit and stuff, and he I don't think he's ever been in the water. I don't know if he had or not, but I get him down to the water, and we sit down in this little slough, and I show him how to sit on the board and spin his feet around so he can kind of control the board. And I back my truck up down to the water, and the director and producer and the camera guys were down there, and we had on waterproof microphones, and we paddled out, and the director said, if you get out there and a good wave comes, catch a wave and ride a wave. So we paddle out, and we're sitting out there hanging, and Chuck's sitting there, and it's pretty cold out there, but the waves are kind of clean, not what I expected. I got out there, Chuck turns around, and I said, Chuck, stay here. I'm going to catch this wave. So I rode this little wave in, kicked out, looked back at him, and he's sitting on the board looking up, and there's a 6-foot wave coming right down on his head and just completely creams him. And the board flies up in the air, and his legs are going over here, and his arms are going over here, and he's panicking.
Yeah.
He's never been slammed by a 6-foot wave before. And I used to be a lifeguard when I was a kid, so I go rushing over there 100 miles an hour and pull him up on his board and get him back to calm down, and he's panicking, he's huffing and puffing. And so he goes, I got to go in. I'm freaking out, man. I go, okay, let's go in. So we went in, and we're walking up the beach, and he's got his board under his arm, and he looks over at me. He goes, man, I got a lot more respect for you surfer dudes. And I just busted out laughing.
He realized it's not as easy as it looks, right?
Well, I mean, he could have drowned right there. Or the board could have hit him and knocked him out, or,
It's true.
It was a heavy wipeout. You don't sit with a lip come down on you like that. That's not a good place to be.
So any final thoughts about New Smyrna and sharks?
No, it is what it is. We're gonna have shark bites to continue to happen. And if you watch the water and you watch the fish and, keep your eyes open. I haven't been bit by a shark yet, so I can knock on wood. And, just be careful. Like you said, I've had them swim right in front of me. And my wife seems to be a shark magnet. She will walk down to the water, and a shark will swim right in front of her. This has happened numerous times. Zoom right in front of her, and she'll come running back. How come you didn't tell me there were sharks out there? And then there's always sharks out there.
You should know, honey.
Yeah.
You should know. So. Well, Kem, I enjoyed it, man. Good stuff.
Thank you,
Be
Randy.
safe out there. You're living the dream. You really are.
Well, I think I got OCD because I can't do anything for a very long time. I'll do some art and I'll do some music and I'll do some photography, and I'm just always moving around doing this and that. It keeps me happy, and I got to be creative. So,
alrighty, we're out of here.
No more Roach on Florida TV.